All right, and here we are. Welcome to the Mack Flash 5, everybody. On the show, me and the Mack Flash team on a weekly basis are going to get together and we're going to discuss our top 5 movies in a given category. Each of us take turns picking the category. Everyone has a week to come up with their list and come back with their top 5 of that category of movies. We were given sports movies as a category by Scott Paulo Creed last week. Hello, gentlemen. Are you guys ready to get started?
What's up, Val?
Hello.
Hey.
Oh, yeah. Ready, yes.
Right. Excellent. Well, let's get it started. No dillying or dallying. AB, top 5 sports movies, number 5.
Okay, so these aren't necessarily my top 5 sports movies because otherwise there would pretty much be 5 baseball movies because I do love baseball movies. So I decided to go a different route and go my top 5 movies each from a different sport. So my number 5 movie is from 1986 from David Anspaugh, and it is my basketball movie Hoosiers, starring Gene Hackman and Dennis Hopper. Just a solid movie. It's actually the guy David Anspaugh. I found out he also directed Rudy, so that was kind of weird. But man, I watched it as a kid. Pretty much all of these movies that I'm going to talk about, I watched a lot as a kid, and as you can see from the VHS tape. So yeah, man, I definitely love that movie.
That's a good one.
I can't wait till you get to cricket and like Highlight and all that.
five movies. There's only 5 movies, 5 sports
in a box set. It's
yeah.
Matthew, what do you got for us at number 5?
My number 5 is Baseketball.
Nice.
That's great. I was just thinking of that movie yesterday, actually.
I love this movie, directed by David Zucker, who also did the Naked Gun movies with his brother and Jim Abrams. And so it's a sports parody movie. But aside from being hilarious, it's also a very inspirational movie. These 2 guys who are not athletic decide they're going to make a sport of their own. That sport goes from the garage to a neighborhood game to a game played in arenas or stadiums.
It's great. This is a great call.
And
it's like the peach baskets in basketball.
Yeah, and I watched it not too long ago, and then this topic came up, and I was like, excellent. This is number 5, hands down.
And the funny thing about that movie, it's like ahead of it nails like the dry satirical love of sports.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just it nails everything.
Every stereotype. Every
stereotype.
And Real Big Fish is featured on the soundtrack,
and they're in the movie.
So, I know. Yeah. Like in the stands, I think.
Yeah, they're the band that plays the music for the game. Yeah.
So funny story. Me and Mike and some of our friends used to play Baseketball when we went bowling, and we'd literally do that. We'd stand at the bowling line and like try and psych somebody out as they're bowling because of that movie, and it was awesome.
It just eventually devolved into people yelling at each other, and then people at
just
the bowling
about
alley
to bowl.
did not like it. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
They're all trying to saying mean things.
High school gym class was oftentimes basketball. I hate basketball. I hate playing basketball. So me and my buds, we would play basketball. We'd just stand at the free throw line and shoot them in. And then, mentally, single, double, triple. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
There you go.
Great movie. All right, Mike, what do you got number 5?
Okay, so this was tough. I'm kind of along the lines of Andrew. Probably would have just all been baseball films because that's what I played when I was younger, and that's what I watched. I'm not a sports film guy, so it's not a surprise that this one is a baseball film. They all aren't baseball films, but I couldn't keep this off my list. Bad News Bears, the original. The remake was funny, but the original with Walter Matthau, I love that concept of I don't give a damn what you do. I'll sit here and drink a beer on the bench kind of thing, right?
Oh, it's like if I was the baseball coach.
Yeah.
Whatever, just whatever.
Yeah.
I don't care.
And it's just I don't know. He's so good in that. I don't like a whole lot of Walter Matthau films, but that's one I could watch over and over. And I don't know. I feel like it holds up, even though it's like from the 70s. Like I could, I'm sure there's some things that are inappropriate now in it, but like it's just
a time capsule of its era. It's perfect.
The least of which are I mean, kids getting hit.
Yeah.
In that movie's got kids getting hit, and it's got child stars or child actors.
Yeah, O'Neill there, right?
Tatum
O'Neal.
Who
Yeah.
married John McEnroe.
Sports figure.
Yeah, right.
Seems about right.
But there's one shot in particular for Bad News Bear where the I forget what the kid's name is, but he's up to bat and a pitch comes in and it comes right at his head and he has to duck. You couldn't do that today. You can't throw a baseball at a kid's head and say duck on cue.
Make sure you duck.
Oh yeah.
If you don't duck, it's gonna hit you.
Or it'd be a
Movies don't
CG
get
ball.
made. Yeah,
It'd be a CGI ball
Yeah.
coming in.
Yeah, so that's my 5. That's my number 5.
All right.
Solid. It's a solid pick.
Very cool. This is good, eclectic list. My number 5, gotta get to work. Steamin', Willie, beaming.
I knew
Oliver
it. I knew
Stone's
this was
Any Given Sunday.
Yeah.
I
knew that
love
was gonna be
this.
on there.
This movie is cotton candy if you're a football fan. It is a hyper sensualized, like interesting look at behind the scenes of a football team. Just to the if I like pro wrestling because everything's ramped up to 15. That movie is football ramped up to 20. Everything about it. Pacino playing the downtrodden, down and out coach, and Quaid is the quarterback, but then the young, cocky, arrogant Jamie Foxx comes in, and it's just the characters in the movie. There's cameos from actual NFL players. So when you watch, you're like, well, there's LaDainian Tomlinson, there's Lawrence Taylor, there's Terrell Owens. It's incredible. The scenes and Oliver Stone injecting the chariots and the chases. It's just so intense and big. And the football scenes are pretty well done, like, to be honest. So my number 5, Any Given Sunday.
Hey man, it's a football movie that I'll watch, so that I'll give it
such a stellar cast.
I'll give it some props because I'm not a fan of football movies very much, but
and that's what it is. It's
speech. There's a huge speech. Is that the one?
Yeah,
with,
his Inches speech.
Pacino?
The Inches speech is iconic, and it's almost overplayed and overrated at this time. But when you watch it with the music, you're like, damn, this is still a really good speech and a really good scene.
Nice.
It is a really good movie. It's just too bad. Well, I mean, for obvious reasons, they can't get the cooperation of the NFL and players to use, real team names and jerseys and stuff. It's all about the dark side of, or the stuff you don't want to talk about during football.
They acknowledge the Crosstown Dolphins, but you're right. That's the only thing where it's like the Miami Sharks. Kind of like.
Interesting. All right, Any Given Sunday. Make sure. Well, like a lot of your choices, you've noticed I've been pretty quiet so far. I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that I am not the hugest sports fan. That sports in general is, which leads into, in the discussion I was having with my wife about this, going, it's one of those things where those might be very good movies. And yes, I have seen some very good sports movies, but I would never gravitate towards them because they're about centrally sports. A domain that I have no interest in. So my choices might seem controversial, especially my number 5, which is Talladega Nights.
It's a great call.
You're talking to the right guys for that.
Yeah.
You know, NASCAR is definitely considered a sport for the endurance that the drivers have to have, throughout the sport. But in the fact that that movie was just excellent in every way. I was never a huge Will Ferrell fan, and I think that might have been one of the movies that really convinced me to not only keep watching, but also go back and watch the ones that I wasn't impressed with. Like, I never liked Anchorman the first time, but the second time I was like, what was wrong with me? This is a great movie. And there's movies like that. So Talladega Nights is one of those movies, and it just keeps surprising me because you keep forgetting about the parts, like Sacha Baron Cohen's in it, and he's amazing in it, Great. So there's all this stuff. So Talladega Nights would be my number 5 sports.
You can make an argument that that's probably Ferrell's best comedy. In all honesty,
high replay value.
It's
great.
Good. It's a great.
I won't argue with that.
So well. It's good. It's
shake
like, it
and
ages,
bake it.
It ages.
What does that even mean? What does that even mean? I don't know. Shake it and you bake it.
The great scene at dinner. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's classic Ferrell in that. I mean, he does have some bad ones, but the replay value on that, like Anchorman and some others, the more you watch them, the better they get, the more you love the lines, right? And like you said, that's got to be one of John C. Reilly's. I mean, Step Brothers, but other than that, John C. Reilly and Ferrell's best together, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's our top 5. Moving on to the number 4 sports movies. AB.
Okay, so this is my football movie from 1993, directed by David S. Ward. It was between this movie and another movie that will be on my honorable mentions later on. But I had to go with The Program.
Love
Oh,
the
James
program.
Caan.
Kane is able. I
Oh.
love
Kane
the
is
program.
able.
Yeah.
Kane is able. The program for me kind of beat out Fred. The other one. Whoops! Spoiler alert. Beat out the other one because it's raw. It was.
Yeah.
It's a raw film. Like I love all the stuff with Latimer and the drugs, the steroid stuff. But for me, the best part of that movie is the stuff with Alvin, the stuff with the defensive end who gets hurt. Spoiler alert: he gets hurt at the end, and basically like he was going to get drafted by the NFL, and just completely like shipwrecks his life because of an injury, and just like basically crushes him. And that for me broke my heart as a teen watching that, and kind of showed me like the dark side of sports and the dark side of college football. That there's so much riding on it for a lot of these guys that basically have nothing else, and that can be all wiped away in a single second. And so, like, yeah, I love the program.
I think the program is
And it's got Halle Berry.
Halle Berry and Omar Epps at his peak Omar Epps.
Yeah.
Nice. So uplifting movie for a nice Sunday afternoon.
Latimer.
I made it sound super depressing, but it's fun as hell. The stuff with Latimer busting windows, seat at the table, busting his head through the windows.
That made me think like an uplifting film. There's a good college romp you might want to see too called Higher Learning. It's a really good.
Oh my gosh! Also with Omar Epps. Yeah.
All right. On that note,
it's a great film.
Let's go with thanks, AB. That was really good. Matthew, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is The Mighty Ducks. Now, I mean, there's probably a few of you would think, yeah, right here. I won this at movie trivia at Snot, I'm pretty sure, and I love this thing. I wear it all the time. I wear it to actual hockey games, and people.
That's true. We
like
went to a hockey game in September.
Yep, and people like to stop and say, "Oh, great!"
Remember when crowds could go to places? Remember when crowds were a thing? Remember crossing the border? What a 2019 thing to do.
Now, of course, I saw Mighty Ducks when I was a kid, and it would be my first introduction to what an underdog story is. And I think probably the best sports movies are underdog themed that way.
Mm-hmm.
It also introduced me to Emilio Estevez and probably reinvigorated his career for a short time, because a lot of people after the Brat Pack era wasn't doing too much. Then this one brought him back into theaters and homes and stuff. But yeah, and I love the movie. Anytime a Mighty Duck cast member shows up in a movie or on a TV show, I'm usually sitting down and watching it. And there's sometimes my favorite part.
Mugshot. I was going to say that.
There's at least 2 of
Cracked
them.
Cracked out.
Cracked out Goldberg. Get Wilson Goldberg.
But along with being an underdog story, it has also a lot of great storytelling in terms of characters and how like you're on the edge of your seat by the end of the movie because like Adam Banks, they get Adam Banks in the on the team, and if he had stayed healthy the whole time, they would have won that game no problem. But they write in the Hawks have to beat up Adam Banks, get him out, and it becomes more of an even keel, and you're on your edge of your seat till the end of the movie. Ducks win. Sometimes it's predictable, but great.
Nice.
Fantastic.
You tell it like it was a true story. Like I'm listening, I'm like, and then what? Who did he get traded to after that? Like I was
I must see this.
The third one is so
Great.
underrated too.
I think there's a Netflix.
That's a great trilogy.
Isn't there a new Netflix series on that? Is this just The Last Banks or something? Or I don't know.
Adam Banks gets a 30 for 30. Adam Banks.
The Mighty Ducks is coming to Disney Plus as a TV show. That's been announced, and I can't wait.
Yeah. All right, segue. My number 4, Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Anyway, proceeding.
Great.
Yeah. So I won't go too much into it because, but I will say this: it was a hard choice for me not to put it on my list because, like, I mean, if you're gonna make me enjoy hockey in a film, you know, it's kind of the same thing when you're talking about any given Sunday football film. Then you're gonna make my list. But it was hard for me to decide: do I put 1 or 2? Because 2 for me, like if you say to me on any given Sunday, what film do you want to watch? I'm going to say Mighty Ducks 2, because for me, it's more fun. I have a lot more fun watching Mighty Ducks 2 than I do Mighty Ducks 1. But it goes back to the whole concept of you don't have Mighty Ducks 2 without Mighty Ducks 1. And Mighty Ducks 1 is a good movie, right? So if you're putting on the list, it kind of has to be on the list above the second one. But I watch number 2 way more. You know, Knuckle Puck and all that, like it holds up. I mean, it's silly. It's funny to watch and see things like, you know, oh, they're going to go head to head with the Icelandic hockey team. You know, the real threat of Iceland, who's made how many hockey tournaments, right? Like those kinds of things. I laugh at those. Like I was watching with my daughter and saying things like, no, that's not going to be a competitor.
And Team USA is 90% from Minnesota.
Yeah.
90% from one team.
No Team Canada involved at all. Like it's just the things where I'm like, I don't think this is, but you kind of don't think of that when you're little, and you know, and so you know, it makes it because of nostalgia. So that's my number 4 as well.
Nice, that's a good one. It comes up all the time when anybody says sports movies. They say, "Oh, like Mighty Ducks." that came up so many times. Scott, what do you got for us?
We're gonna keep it rolling because my number 4 is also a Disney hockey movie. Great moments are born from great opportunities. My number 4 is Miracle.
I knew it.
Yeah,
I basically could know every single one of your movies.
I feel like you definitely could. I think Miracle is probably one of the best real told stories of any film. Like rewatching it, they got real hockey players to do it. Billy Snyder plays his dad in the movie, which is so cool. And then you see Kurt Russell in an awesome role as Herb Brooks, not wanting to, taking on the team. And then again, what's funny is you see how much D2 copies from it with the bag skating and all that stuff and how he works the team ragged. But then the final shots when they take on Rush and they beat him and then they reuse the footage and Al Michaels, it's incredible. Same thing. That's an underdog story. It's USA. It's Disneyfied. So you get that nice coat of paint and the gloss and the music. So for me, I thought this would be an honorable mention and it fought its way on at my 4. So for me, my number 4 is Miracle.
Nice.
I can't argue with Kurt Russell.
Miracle's
Kurt Russell
great.
is the man.
Oh, Kurt Russell in that movie with like the plaid pants. He looks like $1 million in that movie.
Love him.
That's great. Miracle. That's another one that came up in discussion talking about sports movies. I guess it does come up a lot. Mine is not a hockey movie, as a matter of not at all. My next one, number 4, is a football movie.
Ooh.
It's also an underdog, but a even further underdog, where we're talking about someone who just dreams of playing the sport but isn't even on the team, but does anything he can to be around the team and help out the team.
I know where this is going.
This chance. I'm talking about, of course, Waterboy.
Oh, I thought you were Rudy. Thank God. I hate Rudy. Thank God.
Oh man, you got us. You got us good.
Yeah. Waterboy's a million times better than Rudy. Rudy is the most overrated movie in Hollywood.
Waterboy. What?
I have seen Rudy, and it goes on not my list of honorable mentions, but list of like,
let's talk Waterboy for the next hour.
I love it. Bob Boucher.
Yeah, Bobby Boucher, foosball is the devil, right? And all the scenes, all the quotes, say what you want about Adam Sandler. He he always plays the same role, but he can play it to such extremes that it's insane what he's able to do, and to basically give us the Waterboy, which is like a very unique character in itself, and the whole story and the whole. It's Billy Madison, it's Happy Gilmore, it's the same shit, but whatever. Like, it was still a really good movie. So that's it. That's my number 4.
Nice.
I like the fake out.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
funny.
solid.
He
That
really
was
got me.
solid.
What's really funny,
Yeah.
ironically, I'm watching on right now while we do this. I have Adam Sandler's other football movie on right now on my TV, The Longest Yard. So
Mean Machine. Or
yeah, as soon as you said that, it's Colonel Sanders is the warden's right hand man. So I was like, oh, that reminds me of the Waterboy. It's funny.
it's so good. All right, let's take a look. We're down to number 3, and number 3 with AB.
All right, number 3 is from 1984, directed by John G. Avildsen. I was obsessed with this movie as a kid, and I kind of still am. For some reason, I can't find the case for this, so you'll have to look at it on the side. This is 1984's Karate Kid.
It's pirated.
I loved the Karate Kid when I was a kid. I was, like I said, I was obsessed. I took karate when I was a kid. I think because of that movie.
I'm a kid.
Yeah, I'm a kid. I can do karate. I mean, we could talk it for hours about how awesome the movie is, but it's great. And depending on who you talk to, on who's the villain and who's the actual hero of the movie, Johnny Lawrence, the real Karate Kid.
Yeah, that's the best moment in How I Met Your Mother history. Is that scene?
Yeah.
There's all sorts of videos online too, trying to like show how Danny Russo's the villain.
Absolutely. Well, and as a companion piece, the new show Cobra Kai is phenomenal. It's perfect for that, and on top of it, it takes that to further. It's where Johnny kind of isn't as bad as he thought he was, and he kind of was like the hero of that show for me anyway. But Karate Kid, love Karate Kid.
I love Karate.
I've never seen the show. I hear outstanding reviews.
You gotta watch it. You'll love it. You'll love Johnny.
About how season 3's up. It's going to be a huge bidding war. It's going to go somewhere like Netflix. It's going to get a huge revamped budget now.
Really?
So it hit the market at a perfect time.
Well, and on top of it, it's got one of the all-time great villains in Martin Kove, the sensei of Cobra Kai there. He is phenomenal. Like, he is a major force as a villain there.
That's great.
No mercy. Mercy is for the weak.
No mercy. Sweep the leg, Johnny. Sweep the leg.
Sweep the leg.
Matthew, give us your top 3. Your number 3, I mean.
Well, we're going to keep the conversation going because my number 3 is also the Karate Kid.
Yeah, nice.
I'll just talk.
Please do that.
Yeah, the Jaden Smith Karate Kid.
The Kung Fu Kid.
I'll just talk about the end of the movie, which is my favorite part, where it comes down to Daniel has hurt himself. He got kicked in the leg, and he's in the back locker room, and he's talking to Mr. Miyagi, and they converse about, can you help me out? I really wanted to win this. And Miyagi says something, win or lose, it doesn't matter. You did your best. It's like, but I think I know I can beat them. And he heals him up as best he can. He goes out there. Him and Johnny have their fight. One of my favorite shots in movie history is the wide shot of them getting ready for the last round of the fight. Johnny's psyched up. Daniel goes for the crane kick pose, and it cuts to Mr. Miyagi concentrating, and he's nodding his head. He's like, yes, this kid's going to do it, which is terrific story and performance, because he just said winning and losing doesn't matter. But no, he wants his student to win this fight. And that's what makes it one of my favorite moments in movie history.
You play to win the game.
with an illegal kick.
It's not an illegal kick. It's dialogue in the movie. Ali says anywhere from the waist up is legal.
You kicked him in the face.
Yeah, that's a head. You can kick him in the head.
No,
that's above the waist.
Headshots. It says no headshots in the opening rules.
No. In the opening rules, it's everything above the waist and head. She says head. She's Johnny's ex-girlfriend. She's been to these things. She knows the rules.
I'll have to check.
That's not what the ref says. But anyway,
we get that.
Let's get Macho in here. Someone's Skype Macho.
we know what Macho was going to say. Macho's going to be like, of course it was legal.
It's illegal.
He's a bad guy.
Get Billy Zabka in here.
Yeah.
Oscar-nominated Billy Zabka.
That's right.
Karate Kid's a great movie. I used to watch that movie like all the time. It was one of those, you go to the corner store, just rent a movie or whatever. I would always pick up the Karate Kid. It was always on TV. It was like I lived at that time, so I got to see that movie like 100 times. It was crazy.
Same.
Yeah, great movie. Mike, number 3. Say Karate Kid. Come on, do it.
No. This will be my my historical film. You know, everyone's got their one. Like Scott's got his Miracle, and their true story, if you will. This one I actually vividly remember being taken to by my parents, which I don't really remember a lot of films that my parents took us to, but we were in Vancouver at the time, and they took us to go see A League of Their Own in 92. Nice. And I mean, my brother and I both played baseball, and that was our sport, and we quite enjoyed it. And I'm sure that's the reason they took us. But and at the time, that's probably why I enjoyed it. But you know, in subsequent viewings, you know, having watched it over and over and over, I don't know, it just gets better and better. Like, I mean, obviously, the historical aspect, the whole concept of the fact that, well, what are we going to do? We want our league to go on, so let's just bring in, you know, the women to play. That was fascinating. But then just like, it's hilarious. Like, it's one of my favorite Tom Hanks roles. He's a riot. He barely, I mean, it's a bit part for him, but man, he steals it, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, aside from the annoying Lori Petty, I can't say much bad about anyone. Like, I love Gina Davis in it. I love Madonna in it.
Madonna.
Yeah.
Rosie's great.
You did bad.
That's Rosie's best role.
Do you know when you did bad when like somebody's first complaint is not Madonna, it's you.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, I'm sure it's like part of the like whole like that character, that whole part of that storyline.
She's the little sister.
Yeah, and that annoying little storyline, and I hate the way they do it. And she throws it for her and all that. Like, that gets me every time I watch it. I'm like, what are you doing? Take the win, like. But
no, Lori Petty sucks at everything.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, she sucks.
But that's a separate issue. We can have our top 5 worst Lori Petty films on another time. But
can we?
Yeah. But I don't know. It's just like, there's so many things about it that I love, and every time, and sports films don't tend to do this to me, but that last, you know, in the end when they go back to they go to the Hall of Fame and they open it up, and you know, you get some of the people are the real women, but you know, some of them are in the makeup and stuff. But you see sort of the historical moment, and some of them have passed on, and you see all the real photos, and you can't like stop yourself from getting those goosebumps and tearing up and going like, this is pretty amazing, right? So I like that film. That's my number 3.
Nice. It's a really good one. Number 3, Scott Paulo Creed.
So my 3 is not that one yet, but my 3 is sometimes I think the best sports films can be made out of boxing stories. And although I had 4, what I said, I think the best adaptation of a true story. My 3, I mean, I can't go against my love of the actor and my love of the character he's portraying. But my favorite person in all of Hollywood is Will Smith. So for my number 3, I'm going to pick Michael Mann's 2001 biopic Ali. And that's one movie, short of my favorite movie of all time, I've probably seen the most. And I watch that movie 2-3 times a year probably. And even scenes, like, I'll put it on. A lot of people don't like it, and they don't think it really gets there. And I never understood that, because I think the first opening 8 minutes I have seen over 100 times, from Sam Cooke doing his rendition with Ali running the streets and training, and then meeting Drew Bundini Brown, and through all this stuff into the Sonny Liston fight is an incredible way to start a film. And then you get all through the good and the bad, and mostly bad, of Ali. And then finally going back to Africa for the Rumble in the Jungle with Foreman. That final scene, that fight, the Boombaye running through. Like, I love Ali beginning to end. There are no, like, I will watch. That movie is 240, and it flies for me.
See? I love that one. It's like, I'm not as much as I said before that I'm not a sports fan. I love sports stories.
That's exactly.
It's always so inspiring. And, you know, when you catch a good sports story, especially a documentary, a true story, a dramatized, biography like this, you know, you go, well, this is great. And it's a great movie. Regardless of the fact that this is, like, to me, he might as well be a fictional character, because, you know, of course I know who Ali is, but you know what I mean? Like, when I watch a sports documentary. So this is like one of those things where I look forward to it. And especially, I'm a fan of long movies. You're saying it's good, it's long, it's comprehensive. Like, that's the kind of movie you really want to get into. It kind of carries you through.
Completely. So exactly. The whole story, I thought it encapsulated a lot I think there's a lot for a sequel they would never do. And but I'm just saying it's such a big, larger than life character that there's so much that they didn't even tell that you still could. But again,
you've been mentally writing a
prepping.
sequel screenplay.
Get at me, Michael Mann. Get at me because I have your sequel in my head. But and I will reenact it Andy Dwyer style at Parks and Rec in front of you. But so my number 3, I couldn't lie to myself on rewatchability, on inspirationalness, and how much I love Will Smith and love Muhammad Ali and love them playing the same character. Ali is my number 3.
That's good, man. Ali, I didn't even think about that one.
I love Ali.
I was trying to think of like boxing ones, and like I just thought of the usuals, which I'm not going to bring up in case there's somebody else brought them up tonight. But mine, no boxing on this one. And number 3, kind of, I don't know how to introduce this one except for I was trying to, well, again, like AB, I was trying to think of different sports when I was going through it. I was like, don't think of the same sport all the time. Like, think, hey, which one do you know in this sport? Which one do you know in that sport? And so I was like, oh, what golf movie do you know? And I was like, obviously Happy Gilmore, right? So as much as I pumped it up for Waterboy before, yes, clearly Happy Gilmore follows that up, because if I had to pick between the two, definitely Happy Gilmore. When it comes to the sports ones, of course, we were talking about. There you go. The price is right, bitch. price is wrong. Happy Gilmore again for the same reasons. All the great, like the great Adam Sandler type story, and the fun fantasies, and the this and the that, and Chubbs in the hand.
This guy's in it.
Fucking love it.
That's true. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Chubbs with the hand, and yeah, it's a great movie. The subway thing, everything about that movie.
It's everything. It gets better every time. I love it, just like you. And every time I watch Blue Madison, I like it less and less. And every time I watch Happy Gilmore, I like it more and more. I think Happy Gilmore is his best comedy.
It's like I eat pieces of shit like you for breakfast. It's lines like that.
When I was in college in the student lounge, there were 5 movies on VHS that you could pick from. 3 of them sucked. I don't even remember what they were, but there was Reservoir Dogs and Happy Gilmore, and I have seen both of those movies literally hundreds of times, because we would just be in the student lounge and they would be on just in the background constantly.
Yeah. It's such a good movie. All right, let's move on. We got 2 left. The top 2. AB, bring it on.
All right, my number 2 movie is from 1984, directed by Barry Levinson. I could have put any number of baseball movies on there. There's a ton. There's Bull Durham. There's 8 Men Out, which I was kind of vying for this position, but I can't lie to myself. Like Scott said, can't lie to myself. I've got to go with my boy Roy Hobbs, The Natural.
I'll rep that. I like that.
I love this movie. Every spring before baseball, I be at my parents' house, and I'll do a marathon of baseball movies on VHS at my parents' house. And I watch The Natural more than any of them because I love it. I think it's a fantastic story. Paul Newman.
The other one.
I don't know why I said it. Redford.
Paul Newman's later for you, pal.
Yeah, just knocks it out of the park. I think he's fantastic. I think it's a fantastic film. I think, of all the baseball movies, I think that has always been my number one ever since I was a kid.
I want to say 2 quick things, 3 even then. And AB's a sports fan, and Matt might know, and Mike, you would too. The Natural was so iconic too. And then 10 years ago, obviously his story sold, but how realistic it was to Josh Hamilton. Josh Hamilton was this huge phenom, got addicted to drugs, left baseball for like 12 years, came back and killing on the Texas Rangers, took him to the World Series back-to-back years, signed a big money deal with the Angels, faded away after. But again, he was like the real life Roy Hobbs. 2 things that I love about The Natural, and they're very, very underrated. Pick Me Out a Winner, Bobby, is probably my most used and favorite movie quote of all time. And there's the shot when he strikes out the way. No one ever talks about this shot in the movie. Obviously, the ending scene and the home run gets all the acclaim. But I love when he strikes out the whammer and the woman is watching the whammer and shifts slowly to Hobbs, it gives me chills. It's such a great. You just see her go from there's the best player in baseball to this guy, and then you know what subsequently happens. I look for that scene or that GIF online, and it always cuts off right before it, and I'm like, oh, I want to see that stare. I love that shot.
It's a movie I just watched for the first time a few weeks ago. It's on Netflix, and I was like, okay, I'll throw this on. I'd never seen it, and it's one of those movies that, I mean, it was clearly a classic because it's referenced over and over and over again in so many basketball.
It's referencing basketball.
It's referencing basketball.
That's right.
Which made me
forgot about that.
Lazy boy.
Crack up because I knew it was referenced in The Simpsons because he makes Wonder Bat.
Yeah.
And then in Natural, it's Wonder Boy. And it was like, oh, that's where they got Lazy Boy from.
Lazy Boy.
That's right.
So clearly it's an inspiration for so many filmmakers who want to make a sports movie or episode of TV.
Yeah. Or Mach 1.
Or Mach 1, yes.
All right, Matthew, bring it on with your number 2.
My number 2 is was hard. It was actually going between. It was never going to be my number 1. It was flip-flopping between 2 and 3. It's directed by the same director as The Karate Kid, John G. Avildsen, and it's Rocky, the first Rocky. And Scott is probably going to talk about it, but maybe one of the other ones. I don't know. But it's my favorite of that series of movies, one. And it's not only just one of the best sports movies of all time, it's one of the best love stories of all time, in my opinion. At the end of the fight, he's lost the fight. He's done what he wanted to do. He went the distance. He knew he wasn't going to win. He says that flat out in one scene of the movie. I don't think I can win. I don't think I can beat him. I just want to go the distance. So his victory is obviously a moral one for himself. And at the end of the fight, he's just crying out for Adrian to get to the ring, and she does. And they say, "I love you." The movie ends, and I'm just covered in tears.
Does he ever get that tiger's eye?
Not till the third one.
No. Okay, cool. That was like a later thing. Yeah.
He actually also doesn't actually eat lightning and crap thunder. It was just a phrase.
I should have watched this movie. No, I've seen the movie. Rocky was a movie. I've actually seen the first Rocky I ever saw was Rocky 4. That's the first one I ever saw, and then I had to go back. But I was a child at the time. And I've seen them all like randomly here and there. But yeah, Rocky 1's really good. It's good. I never obviously grasped the emotional depth of it because I was too young. But I don't rewatch it.
There's small.
I'm dying to jump on a convo.
There's small victories throughout the movie, even just running to the top of the steps. He can't do it the first time or early in the film, and at the end he finally does it, and he's cheering. The music's blasting, and in some cases that would probably be the end of the movie. But no, now you got to fight somebody.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
I'm dying to talk. There's so much. There's so much I'll circle back
Scott's
to.
saving it.
You got. Hold on. I'll just say my favorite part of it is Burgess Meredith. Burgess Meredith is amazing.
Sure.
Nominated for an Oscar, probably could have.
Amazing. Love him.
Mine was winning Best Picture and
All right,
Best
Scott.
Director.
All right, Scott.
No, it's not Scott's
That's
turn.
Mike's
It's
turn.
my turn to
Mike's
break
turn.
up.
No, I
this
thought you.
because
Oh, okay.
No, I'll get into it later.
This is coming later.
I'm definitely not talking about a boxing film. So my number 2 is this was making the list no matter what. It was a matter of where. It's all nostalgia. Sandlot. Sandlot is
great.
Absolutely.
like
Awesome.
talk about rewatch. I mean, it was a toss up between do I put 5 baseball films on, which I didn't, or do I put 5 films on that remind me of my childhood, and they all Sandlot hits both of those at the same time. Like the concept of just having those friends to play with and all day, and that's all you want to do all summer. Who cares? Every game is like a World Series game, and just hanging out. Like it is a pure nostalgia film. That was one of those ones where I just couldn't wait to show it to my daughter. I don't know. It just everything about it, the quotes and things, the Great Bambino and all the things that come out of that. And it's one of those sets when they came out as a Funko Pop, I had to have the whole set because and that's my sports. I think those are my only sports. I guess I have Happy Gilmore, but that's just a classic film for me. So Sandlot's my number 2.
Nice.
That's timeless, and the fact that it's set in a different era, it just adds
Yeah.
to it. It's an unbelievable decision to do that.
Yeah.
It just will hold up forever. It's awesome.
That's awesome. Scott, what's your number 2?
My number 2, I'm going to keep it rolling. My number 2 is a baseball movie, but if Mike's is about like the child wonder of how beautiful baseball is, mine is like the adult, wretched, how frustrating baseball can be. My number 2 is Moneyball.
Yeah.
I love,
Yeah.
so again, going back, what I love, a tour de force performance, Brad Pitt as Billy Beane, you get dramatic Jonah Hill, and I understood the concept of war and all the analytics and sabermetrics that baseball was doing around the turn of the century and later on, subsequently, the 2010s. The A's were always just a mid-level, bottom-feeding team. They were always fine. They made the ALCS a couple times, but they would always lose and never get there. But to see the movie draw out and take dramatic beats about payroll discussions, and my favorite scene of the movie, the middle scene where Brad Pitt is working 4 lines on the trade deadline and working through trades with Steve Phillips of the Mets and all sorts of other stuff. And Jonah Hill is just confused. You just see the psyche into like what kind of character Billy Beane is to keep track of all this in his head. Again, going back to just little things of like teaching Jonah Hill how to tell Carlos Pena he's traded, and then subsequently by using this team on a budget and replacing these mega stars and going about it a different way, they subsequently gel. It's a very unconventional underdog story in the fact that it takes math and makes it super cool and fun and gives it this nice baseball coat of paint that, again, with whip snap dialogue, great shots, great cast. I just eat it all up. I've seen that movie a ton too. And like I said, it fires. There's a rewrite from Sorkin, and you can tell. And I just, between that and a lot of other movies around that time, but that one's always my favorite of the more recent sports films until my number 1. But Moneyball's my number 2.
Nice.
I can't like, I mean, I love baseball and the background and of it all in there, you know, but it's one of those films, like I've seen it once. I needed to see it, but I can't watch it again. It doesn't have any replay value.
I saw that movie twice in 2 days when it came out.
Yeah.
I went back the next day and saw it.
Everyone
It's
tells
like-
me
You
that
look
I
like
would
Pitt.
love it. Everyone tells me I'd love it.
No, it's great. It's whip snap. And like, it doesn't focus too much on baseball. You meet players, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then ultimately 60%, 70% of that movie is Brad Pitt being handsome, being cool, and being in every scene of the movie. And that's
So
what
that's
I like
why
about,
I don't really care.
That's what I like about movies, though. I like a strong, like, leading man doing cool shit. And Brad Pitt is all over that movie being as cool as possible.
I always thought it was funny that like people always joke about like, who'd you get to play you in a movie? And people
That's
always
the
use,
best.
people always use like, oh, Brad Pitt, like that one dude is like, and he's not like he was like, oh, he was a model who was played by Brad Pitt. Well, of course, he was like, nah, some sports dude. He was like, who's you gonna get? Oh, Brad Pitt's gonna play. He was like, yeah, fucking Brad Pitt played.
Yeah, I know. And Billy Beane's
was
like an
amazing.
athlete, but he's like a math dork, and he's got Brad Pitt in his
he's not like a
pocket.
looker.
That's
Yeah.
That's right. It's
unbelievable.
so great. All right. Well, taking a turn, but not really for my my number 2. I saw this movie in theaters like 5 times by accident. Most of them. One of them was on purpose, maybe 2, and then the other ones were just like, oh, we're here. But with the same person.
How did I get here?
My wife's cousin. Yeah. How did I get here? It's definitely got the underdog story. It's got the it's definitely got the you know exactly where I'm going with this. I'm gonna say it's dodgeball. It's dodgeball.
I wondered if that would be on it. When you were going for the lightweight comedy, I'm like,
Just
I wanna
comedy
go
sports.
dodgeball.
Yeah. So I'm obviously, as you can tell now, I don't watch sports movies, and I saw Rudy when I was a kid. I have seen Hoosiers as well. There's other movies, but I can't say that they're my favorites because, I mean, most of those I've seen once. Whereas these I've seen multiple times and will watch again and enjoy and can quote. And they happen to be about sports. To the point where it was hard for me to think of Dodgeball because I don't think of it as a sports movie. It's so funny. You know what I mean? But there's so many moments. Steve the Pirate, my introduction to Alan Tudyk, right? A great Vince Vaughn, great Ben Stiller.
Great Ben
Stiller.
Stiller. Phenomenal Ben Stiller.
Oh, the whole thing is great. And again, it was the return of Jason Bateman.
Yes,
That's
I know.
right, Cotton. That was a return of
Bold
Jason
strategy
Bateman.
is the most used line in history.
Yeah, it was so good. So anyway, I keep reaching for that. Dodgeball. That's my number. That's my number 2.
I'm so happy it's on your list because I was fighting. Does that make my honorable mentions? Like I was like, I don't know if anyone's gonna have that as a sports film. It's but oh my gosh.
Dodgeball, the sport, and sports played by past their prime adults. Maybe I love it. It's great.
Yeah. Oh, and what's his name? Is it Rip Torn there from Larry Sanders Show?
Rest in peace. Rest in peace. Yeah.
You can dodge a wrench. Yeah.
You can dodge a ball. One of my favorite lines that people always forget about that movie, and I'm sorry because it's crass. He's like, they're trying to figure out how to raise money, and I forget his name, but like the one dude is like we could sell blood and semen, and the pirate's like, yar. He's like, what? Not mixed together.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I love that line. It's just such a good line. All right, here we are. We're down to the number 1 pick, sports movies. This is the Mack Flash 5 AB.
But first,
hold on. We're going to do some honorable mentions first before we get to that.
Before we get to that, thank you. Honorable mentions. We're going to go quick fire. You name 3 movies that almost made the list. No explanations, no stories, just bang, bang, bang. We get to go, oh, or yeah, or ooh, and then that's it. We move on because then it's number 1. Go ahead, AB.
Almost let this one slip. Friday Night Lights, The Wrestler, and He Got Game.
Okay. Matthew?
My 3 are White Man Can't Jump.
Great.
Tin Cup. And Teen Wolf.
Oh. Fantastic.
Oh my God. It is a basketball movie.
Damn you. All right. Basketball Diaries.
Oh, yeah.
Major League.
Yes.
And Remembering the Titans.
Okay. Cool. Basketball Diaries, man. That's yeah.
Oh, heavy.
Yeah, super heavy.
I was gonna save that one for a different list.
It's a sport film. Okay.
All right,
Scott. 3. I went deep cuts. My 3: The Fighter, Rush, and Foxcatcher.
Nice.
Oh, the wrestling one.
I wanted to put the wrestler.
Foxcatcher's great.
I just think Foxcatcher's a little I don't know, just grittier and dirtier. And Carell.
Man, you know how much I dislike wrestling.
I know.
And The Wrestler, I love The Wrestler. Like I thought it was such an amazing film that you got me intrigued into the behind the scenes stuff of wrestling.
Even wrestling is so secondary in that movie. That movie could be about a rock star or anything. Like the fact is that it's wrestling is secondary. Completely, it just transcends because that guy up there hates wrestling more than anyone I've ever met. So,
all right. So, funny enough, my honorable mentions: The Wrestler.
Nice.
Yeah, also think it's very good. The Last Boy Scout. The football movie, and it's also got Halle Berry in it, by the way, because somebody else mentioned Halle Berry before. And Tron. Tron is gladiator sport. Get out of here. Get out of here.
I love it. I love it. Amazing.
What?
Amazing.
I guess.
Well, they are riding things.
It's gladiator sports. You got to do all the different challenges with the ball and the disc and the bikes it's like an Olympic, man. Don't just, you know what? Listen, I don't watch sports movies. I don't fucking got shit, man. It's like I wrote down like things that I'm like, hey, write down the things that they said that you saw, and it was like Hoosiers. That's it. That's the only movie you mentioned that I've actually seen. Let's move on to the number 1 picks, sports movies. And then who's picking again this week? It's we get Matthew picking. I can't wait. So after that, we'll have the choice for next week of what the topic's going to be. So first, number 1s. Let's do this.
Andrew's taking his clothes off.
Oh, here he goes.
I got to say,
like there was any doubt. My number 1 movie of sports movie is 1977, directed by George Roy Hill. It is Slapshot. I love this movie. So funny story about this movie. Yeah, right. I have a reference in this with Paul Newman. Funny story about this movie. I'll instead of going into how much I like this movie, I'll tell a funny story about this movie. So I used to watch this movie all the time with my dad, except we would watch it on TV, and so we loved it. We thought it was great. My dad loves the opening scene with the goalie, the French goalie, talking about all the different penalties. He dies laughing. I love watching it. So we watched it probably 20 times on TV. Loved it. I got the VHS. I sat down with both my mom and my dad to watch it. And we watched another movie, basically, with about 1 million swear words,
Unedited.
a huge scene of nudity, Paul Newman telling the one goalie that he slept with his wife who's a lesbian. And I'm sitting there as a young person between my parents, like, what is this? What is this?
That is so funny.
Super awkward. But yeah, I love Slapshot. I could quote things from it all day long. The end scene is one of my all-time favorites. The guy going up and complaining to the ref, what is this? Like, this isn't hockey. Like,
one of my favorite scenes in a sports film is during the skates circle around, and the Hanson brother. And when you said the ref goes over, I got my eyes on you, Hanson. I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to let you in. I'm trying to listen to the
song. Yes.
During the national anthem.
There is no better bit of comedy than that little 4-minute encapsulation of a scene. That is my favorite scene in a sports film. It's unbelievable.
Here's my tidbit about Slapshot that's great as a French guy, because there's the whole joke about the French and stuff. This is one of those movies that is known in the bilingual community as actually being better. In the French dubbing is actually better than the English original version. People say if you watch the French dubbing, because it's not a France dubbing, it's a Quebec dubbing of it, made with the right accent. So apparently, which I've seen. I've actually watched it in both, and it is a great movie. That should have actually probably replaced Tron on this.
No take back.
Yeah.
No, Tron's there forever.
No, yeah, this is a laminated list.
That's right. That's right.
That's the Slapshot. That's the fact that bilingual people will tell you, people who speak French and English will tell you that the French version is better than the English version.
I'll have to tell my dad that. I don't know if he's ever seen the French version, because he'd love it. My dad is French, so
streaming. I think isn't it on Netflix? I think Slapshot's on Netflix.
My parents don't have streaming anything, so I'll find it for them.
He borrowed that VHS from his dad.
Who owned the Chief?
All right, Matthew, number 1.
My number 1 was mentioned earlier, and Mike talked about it so well, I can only just add a couple of points. A League of Their Own is not just my favorite sports movie of all time. It's got to be one of my top 20 favorite movies of all time. And I'll just talk about the end of the movie is somewhat is chatted about, because at the end you see Lori Petty running into home. Dottie's got the Gina Davis has got the ball, blocking the plate. She tackles her. Ball falls out of her hand. Now, did the ball fall out, or did she drop it on purpose to give her sister the huge, big victory that she's always wanted? Yeah, you think so?
Yes. Boo.
Yeah.
And
I'll watch it, and then I'll let you know what my impression of it is.
The Rockford Peaches go to the dugout in defeat. The Racing Bells and the crowd is cheering. And for most movies, that would be the end, because it's a championship game. But then you flash back to the present, and you see all of the old players on their way to the Baseball Hall of Fame to be inducted in the special wing they have. And you get to see the sisters reunite and have their special moment. And I can't disagree about Lori Petty's performance being bad, but I liked it. I mean, I've seen so few of her movies. I can't really comment on her acting ability, based on like 2 movies I've seen.
Yeah, you can.
But but I don't think anybody gives a bad performance in this movie. It is my favorite Tom Hanks performance though of all time.
That's an interesting call.
And it's the end of his comedic line, except for like voice acting in Toy Story. For during the 80s, he was hilarious. And then he did hit this one, and then it was straight drama since then.
The Terminal, right?
It's interesting.
The Terminal's a comedy, sure, but
romantic.
Not really a Tom Hanks
but
comedy.
it's not an over-the-top Tom Hanks one. It's like he does so well.
Yeah. That's good. I like that. That's on my list now that you guys have brought it up. I used to just think it was some silly comedy about it.
Wow.
I never put any thought into it. Again, it's one of those things where there's probably a bunch of people like who probably didn't even watch this episode right now because they're like, sports movies, and they just went aside, because they're like, I don't care about that. But like I was able to prove that there's enough sports movies that aren't necessarily for sports people, and like that League of Their Own and Ali are both on my list of like movies.
Cool.
League of Their Own. They had a short, I think, like a pilot series on a TV. They had like 5 episodes that aired, but after Glow came out, I was like, they can make a League of Their Own a TV show, and it would do really well today.
Nice.
You could. Yeah, you could, because you could have different episodes about different teams and go from team to team in each episode and such, right?
You can do Friday Night Lights as a show. You could do that easily.
Yeah.
There's 30-minute
There's a show.
No, he's saying.
Friday Night Lights is the same thing.
Friday Night Lights could be a TV show. Why couldn't a League of Their Own be a show?
Oh, I see.
I think they did that.
Comedy.
I was like, wait.
You bring back Kyle
watched
Chandler to play the Tom Hanks part, and you're set.
Yeah.
Actually, it's amazing. Actually, Full Hearts.
So in grand tradition of I'm not a sports film guy, what do I make my number one? This kept coming back, and I'm like, you know what? This is sports adjacent, but it is one of my favorites. And I'm gonna predict only one of you has seen this. It's Green Street Hooligans from 2005.
Oh,
and
man. You know what?
Have you seen it?
What?
Elijah Wood and Charlie Hunnam, Before Sons. And I think it's after Undeclared, when he did Undeclared, but irrelevant. Such a good film. There's very few good true football films, talking soccer, that I could get into. I'm not watching Bend It Like Beckham and those kinds of films, but this one is, it's half about the game, but it's really about the fans. And if you really think about football in terms of England and a lot of European countries, it's all about the fans anyways, and their chants and their cheers and their harassing each other, and that's what it's about. And it is aggressive. Like it is like high octane, beat the crap out of each other. We hate you, even though we don't even know you, just because you like this sports club. And it like is amazing. And Elijah Wood, I like Elijah Wood, but he's again going back to probably the worst part of that film, if you will. But he still pulls it off because he's like the American that comes over, right? And I don't know. It's just I can rewatch that movie over and over. And like I said, there are some soccer matches that go on, but it's mostly about the behind the scenes of the fans, and family, and how it impacts them all and stuff. I love it.
There's a buddy of mine who used to get together after work, and we used to work in the same office. And we'd go to his house with a couple of beers and go smoke some pot, and then we'd pick a movie, whatever movie, and we'd watch. This is the guy that we watched Adaptation 8 days in a row at his house, and we watched this movie because it was one of those we couldn't find anything like. How about this? And I was like, well, why not? It sounds different and whatever. And I can't say that it's like, but I do remember like saying, wow, that was, when you watch a movie you never would have picked and you go, I'm glad I watched this. That's
what happened. I think we like rented it or something. Like, I can't remember how
we watched it.
We rolled across it and then it was just like, oh, I need to own this. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
just don't watch the sequel because it is the worst.
Yeah. I've never
tried. Beyond the worst.
I have not
don't bother.
tried that.
Yeah.
It's like Hooligans 2 Boogaloo.
More hooligan-y here.
Hooliganer.
Right, Scott, number one movie.
Oh boy, here we go.
My number one sports movie. I'm cornering the market on Apollo Creed merch. Now, I'm going to go off the back of what Matt said earlier, and Mike about Mighty Ducks. I couldn't lie to myself. I know Rocky is a better film. Rocky to me is a top 10 film of all time. I think everything Matt said about Rocky holds still. The Adrian Rocky love affair, Paulie, Adrian's story is equal. Apollo Creed is my favorite character in the entire saga. One of my favorite movie characters of all time. I couldn't lie to myself, though. My favorite sports film is 2015, directed by Ryan Coogler, Creed. Creed is my favorite sports film of all time because it's built off the strength and back of Rocky. And everything it does with a fresh coat of paint, an urban style, and an urban flavor. And I remember hearing the story, Apollo's illegitimate son, and you're like, okay, well, let's see what the story's like. It's gonna be good no matter what. The fresh breath it breathed into that tired franchise, 10 years removed from Rocky Balboa. It was a very tired franchise. Everyone knows it gets pulpier after. 3 is fun, 4 is insane, 5 is terrible, Balboa is serviceable, but then Creed comes out and it's this all new level. And you bring in, and then you bring the story where after Apollo dies, his wife goes and gets Donnie out of juvie and raises him, but he doesn't use the Creed name, but he boxes because it's in his blood. So then he starts to make his name and he goes to track down Rocky. And again, there's the nostalgia and the callbacks and just everything through. To me, I remember being glued to the screen when I saw it the first time. Once you get to the Conlon fight at the end and Rocky's in his corner, and then when he stands up and he's beat up and the old theme kind of remixed hits. It's incredible. Everything else, the long shot, just bits of direction. Like I watched it again last week in preparation for this list because I knew it was my one. I just wanted to make sure it was firmly my one. And I love it every time more. And for me, just Michael B. Jordan becoming a star, bringing Stallone back, but bringing Rocky back in a humanizing light in his battle with cancer. Stallone won a Golden Globe for this role. It's the 7th
and then got
time
snubbed or later.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure, but he still. You took a character 40 years removed in his 7th iteration as the character and breathed an incredible new nuanced performance in that, playing the Mickey role. And while I think Rocky is a better film top to bottom, like I said, this is a list of favorites. And for me, I cannot lie, I like Creed more than Rocky. So built off the back of Rocky, my favorite sports film of all time is Creed.
That's awesome, man. I really like that. I watched. Did you watch? You probably watched Sylvester Stallone do that Instagram Q&A.
Yeah, the watch along.
Somebody asked him, like, is there a possibility of another Rocky movie, like with Rocky as Rocky, like Rocky in the ring, Rocky boxing? And he's like, yeah. He's like, not exactly sure, because then it just looks like, that old guy trying to recapture his thing. But he's like, there's definitely the possibility of a lot more Creed movies and more.
So it sounds like Stallone wants to branch off, do one more Rocky movie with just Rocky separate from Donnie Creed, and then they'll probably spin off and do an MBJ Creed 3 in its own story. But that's the rumor now. But like I said, you take 10 years removed from a Rocky, and Coogler to have the mindset to be like, I have an idea for this movie, taking Adonis Creed's unnamed out of wedlock child and putting it on a path that course corrected.
It's good.
No, just you're talking about the part where it's pretty much my favorite line in the movie. It's at the end of the movie, the fight, and Rocky says to Donnie, it's like, I'm going to stop the fight. It's like, no, you can't stop the fight. It's like, what? You've got nothing to prove. It's like, yes, I do. It's like, what? I wasn't an accident.
Yeah, it wasn't a mistake.
Oh my God, it's such a great line.
It's great.
That's exactly, because that's where he's like, you're a Creed. He gives him the name that he's been fighting the whole time because he didn't want to use the Creed name. So he says, you're a Creed. And then that's when he stands up and you hear the bump, 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 the Bill Conti remixed version. And I was just hit the floor. I fell out of my chair when that came on. To me, it's the greatest scene in a sports film. Absolutely.
So I dislike all of the Rocky movies. I love Creed and Creed 2.
Yeah.
I've never liked any of the Rocky movies, and I watched Creed out of the blue. I was like, I'll give it a whirl, and I love those two movies for all the reasons you said.
Rocky 4 is insane, steroid, color, bright colors, and you bring back and you humanize Drago.
Yes, so
I cannot
good.
believe these Creed films. Creed 2, I love.
Yes, the stuff with Drago at the end with his son. I
and he
was
throws in the towel.
the wet works. The wet works were going with
he
the
gets out
Drago
of
and
the
his
car.
son stuff.
It's unbelievable. You took the most
The best.
one-dimensional villain in movie history, and you fleshed him out.
Francois, what do you want? What do you want to talk about?
movies or something.
I haven't seen any of those.
That's fine. Oh yeah.
you're
If we were going to
bad.
the con, Friday, I'd be like, we're watching Creed,
Oh, yeah, that's
but
great.
we're not.
All right, homework. Watch
Oh.
the Creed movie.
Give him the
Whoa.
boot.
Kick him out? Did you kick him out?
You cut him out. You
No.
cut him out.
That's
That
it.
was his. He
That's
said everything he wanted to do, dropped the mic, and left.
I think I offended him.
Scott will be back. He must have disconnected
Again.
or something. He just disappeared. And yeah. Well. I mean, yeah.
Keep rolling.
I'm glad that he, he was able to pick It's cool that he was able to pick such a new movie, which means like of all the movies he's seen over time, like this one that happened just recently overtook all of that, and that got to say a lot. That's got to. Oh, there you go. Just saying how like
Chip's back.
Apollo Creed 2.
My iPad died.
Oh.
My iPad died.
I was just
That's
saying,
awesome.
it's great that
It's like Apollo.
you had such a newer movie. There it is. Overtake all of your other movies that were classic movies, and you had to have a recent one be your number one. I think that's great.
I know. I couldn't, especially too. And like the little things in the movie like that only I would appreciate. Like they cut to PTI. PTI is my favorite show of all time. Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon. It's a sports show. It's on every day on ESPN. They cut to PTI and the two of them talking about Adonis Creed. And I'm like, it just shows how cool Coogler's. There's behind the scenes shots of Coogler in his backwards snapback Warriors hat in the ring sparring with Michael B. Jordan. And I'm like, this is my kind of director. This is my kind of scene. This is my kind of flavor. This is my kind of like, again, the breath of fresh air in an urban setting for the Rocky franchise, a tired franchise. It's my second favorite franchise in all film. And it was tired. And you brought it back to award acclaim, which it hasn't been since 76.
That's great. Yeah, great series. Well, we should have ended with you and started with me because this is going to be very.
Tell me how it's.
Maybe I'll have seen yours. That's okay. Come on.
Here's the thing. Mine was this. Mine came down to, when we do these lists, right? Top 5. You got to say that first thing that comes to mind plays a lot, I think, in like the impact that movie must have had on you. Not all the time, but mostly. If that's the first, one of the first movies you think of, that means you put some thought into it. This movie not only is like a great sports movie, and as you can tell, I've been picking comedies and unconventional sports movies all night, but not only that, but it's already been brought up tonight. And Scott said it the best, where to me, it's the parody aspect of this movie where it takes every aspect of professional sports and just lays it out for you in a perfectly structured comedic way. Baseketball is the movie.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Sure, cool.
Baseketball is great because it's one of those movies that everyone's like, oh, that South Park guys movie? I'm like, no, so here's the fun thing. They're just in it. But you're right. That tone is perfect. Zucker and them came together perfectly. And I'm sure they were, it would work better if we said this. There's probably a shit ton of ad lib because these guys are insane. So from that to hearing Cartman's voice for the first time without even knowing that that's going to be Cartman's voice, or because he does it and all the gross outs, and then and all the dick jokes, and then getting Robert Vaughn and getting you said something about they cut to PTI in Creed, right? They have Bob Costas
and Al Michaels.
And Al Michaels.
Yeah, Al Michaels. Again, miracle callback.
Yeah, they have Robert Stack for Unsolved Mysteries section.
Hello, Victoria Silvstedt, Playmate of the Year. That's a good one.
There's like 1,000 quotes, 1,000 moments. And
Robert Stack is great.
Yeah, Robert Stack is like one of my favorites. Robert Vaughn is actually one of my favorites in it, where him and Jenny McCarthy, every like the innuendo, he's like, how about you like to come over? and lay some carpet later.
Yeah. It's just,
Like, it's moment after moment of jokes, but the thing is, it's perfect as like that sports metaphor. We're never gonna be like that, and then they do, and then like it's like it does the entire gamut from underdog to excess, and failed, the whole failure, and then the comeback, and it's perfect. I love Basketball. It's just too funny. Such a great movie. Anyway, it's no Creed, but
No.
it's
Well, at least it's a list that that we all like, right? So we all talked about how much we like it. So it could have been like
I love
something.
Basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah, Basketball is a good one. All right, well, there you have it. Those were our top 5 sports movies, guys. Not bad. I made a list. I've got 2 or 3 to watch here. Apparently,
and we need to know what Matt has chosen for next time.
That's right. I'm curious and excited.
Well, my topic for next episode was based on my number 1 movie. So A League of Their Own, and a lot of us used it. It kind of became the subtopic of today, movies based on a true story.
Like biopics is what you're saying?
If you want to do biopics, you can do biopics.
Not necessarily.
But not necessarily.
But just based on a true story.
But based on a true story.
It's great.
So like Blair Witch, no.
I like that.
So next week, top 5 true story movies. So that could mean a biopic or based on a true story.
Biopic.
Based on actual facts. Some facts may have been used in the making of
Damn, Ali and Rocky are both based on true stories.
You're not allowed to use the same movie twice.
We're back. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. You guys, I'm talking to you guys here. Great. That was a great top 5 list. I love it. Thanks to everybody for watching. Make sure you let us know what kind of topics you'd like to see your top 5, and give us your top 5 sports movies. And we'll see you next week for top 5 true story movies. Guys, have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.